and being willing to speak to you guys today. So, Coach Schiffman, we'll start with you.
What's up, guys? Tony Schiffman. I'm the offensive line coach at Lake Forest College in Lake Forest, Illinois.
There we go. Coach Inslee?
Lauren Inslee. I'm the assistant offensive line coach at University of South Dakota in Vermillion, South Dakota.
Awesome. Coach McClanahan?
Mike McClanahan. I'm the offensive line coach and run game coordinator at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa.
Awesome. Coach Siasi?
What's up, guys? Steven Siasi, offensive line coach, run game coordinator at Bryant University in Smithfield, Rhode Island.
Sweet. All right, so once again, guys, we'll go around the room. Each coach has a couple questions, and I'll kind of mediate the deal. So, Coach Inslee, we'll start with your question first.
Yeah, for sure. How about just what's one piece of advice you've been given by someone that's meant a lot to you in your career and moving forward?
Awesome. Coach McClanahan, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the biggest one that I got that rang true and still rings true to me was and that I had to rely on significantly because I got started pretty young in coaching was that you have to make being inexperienced a strength, not a weakness, meaning that your lack of experience has to feed your hunger to learn and your willingness to take anybody up on the opportunity to learn anything. So you can choose to look at it as I'm a young guy and I don't know jack shit about nothing or what I think I know, but you got to be willing to put that aside and take up any amount of knowledge and at least entertain those ideas, whether you implement them or not, and understand them thoroughly and have a desire to learn. And that's, I felt as like helped me a ton my first few years and still helps me obviously now, but it creates good habits of seeking things out to learn and being specific in what you want to learn.
Absolutely. Coach Siasi, we'll go to you next.
Coach Skrosky at FIU taught me this. He said, if you think you know it all, there's someone out there that probably knows 10 times as much. So keep learning every day. Every day is a new opportunity to learn. Whether it's what you're teaching up front, the O-line, whether it's you offensively, defensively, it doesn't matter. Every day, the second you think that you're done learning, you should probably get out of the profession. That's what he taught me from day one when I worked with him. So that's something I think for every young coach, definitely helped me for my time with him. And then my time with my first coach, Coach Hanline, was the same thing.
Absolutely. Coach Schiffman?
Yeah, kind of touching on what those guys saying, the biggest thing kind of too for me was just keep your mouth shut and listen sometimes, especially as a young guy. You don't know everything, and there are people that have been in the game a lot longer than you. And on a personal level, I was a high school coach for a long time, and this just finished up my first year coaching college. And the big thing for me was don't be afraid to chase after your goals and try to coach at whatever highest level you want to coach to, and network and make relationships and always try to be there for other people, because there are always people that were there to help you out. So, go for your goals and sometimes it's okay to keep your mouth shut too.
Absolutely. During this time, it's definitely given us the opportunity to network and make good connections as well. So that's pretty awesome. Coach Inslee, you want to wrap up your question?
What do you mean wrap up?
Well, just do you want to add to it at all?
No, just the biggest one that I got Herb Hand. I met him 2 years ago down in San Antonio, and just dedicate yourself 100% to what you're doing. There's never enough film study. There's never enough getting out there, getting to learn. And I think that's the key to coaching is trying to learn from everybody else. Everyone has different experiences, and you can take something from them. It'll help you out as a coach.
Absolutely.
And one thing I thought that was good was Coach Sios, I think you said it was like learning stuff outside, just like these are all O-line guys, but learning stuff outside of just O-line play makes you incredibly valuable in the job market. So practically speaking, that's really important, whether you want to coach outside of that or not, but also it makes you a better O-line coach, makes you able to contribute more, whether you want to coordinate or not, like understanding where extra fitters in the box are in certain defenses and talking to D-line guys about what the enemy's doing. The best thing I have is a great relationship with our D-line coach at Drake, who's a heck of a coach, and him and I are constantly – our offices are right next to each other, talk to each other all the time, and just that is a constant flow of knowledge and stuff. Man, I didn't even think that was important that you guys do that, or, but why do you drill that? That didn't matter to us. Like, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Coach McClanahan, we'll stay with you for your question.
Sure. Mine's a little more football specific, I guess. And is how do you guys, or I guess I'm not knowing kind of your backgrounds in the run game necessarily, but what do you guys do to kind of identify key skills, I guess, when you are looking at, say, the run game? When you're looking at, like when I look at inside zone, I'm looking at certain skills that we got to work every day. What are the things that you guys identify as every days to make great offensive linemen, and how do they apply to your scheme, or are they scheme driven and back down? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Like, are you looking at your scheme first and then deriving skills, or are you skills first and then applying the scheme, if that makes sense?
No, that's a great question.
Absolutely. Coach Siasa, we'll start with you.
I love that question, Coach, because I think we, as O-line coaches, we all kind of talk about, people always ask us, what are our EDDs? And I think, like, for me in the off season, like we say, we're going to have three to four core base runs. We're going to be an inside zone team. We're going to run pin and pull. We're going to run power read, and we're going to run guard tackle counter. So we'll work certain skills, down blocks, zone blocks, all this stuff that will hand fitting, hand striking. We'll work stuff that fits what we're going to do every day. But I think for me, I know in season for us, like our weekly stuff is very much a game plan specific thing in terms of like what we do for Indy and all that. Like if we're going to do a ton of gap scheme one week, I'm not going to work a whole lot of, inside zone combos and inside zone hand placement. I'm going to work, 4 hands, 4 eyes on gap double teams. So for us, the season I used to be every day we were doing the same thing. For us, the season, it's really changed to what we're doing scheme wise. I think off season, you live in what you want to be in, and you just work to get better what you need to get better with it.
No, for sure. Coach Schiffman, go to you.
Yeah, we're very similar to what Coach Ciosi does. We're very game plan specific. I guess the one thing that I preach a ton of to our guys is the communication point. Whether it's understanding where the double team is at on the zone, or understanding which is the Mike backer and which is the Will backer in a certain front and with a certain run. So that's the biggest thing. But we're the same way as Coach Ciosi. We're very game plan specific once we get into the season. And I'm not going to focus too much time on things that don't need it. But the one thing I do preach a ton is that communication and the understanding of kind of those little intricacies that maybe get pushed aside late in the season.
Absolutely. Coach Ensley, we'll go to you.
Yeah, as far as just skills and how it incorporates into our offense, just the ability to move correctly and have correct movement patterns, I think is huge. Really, when you can teach an offensive lineman how to have no wasted movement, you can have multitude of run schemes that you can have. And we run quite a bit of different schemes, whether it's GT counter, GY, stretch, inside zone, power. I mean, we run quite a bit of stuff, but it's all about teaching them how to move properly. And I think that's what you got to be doing, especially in different drills, utilizing the weight room too. And that's one of the things, at USD that we did a really good job of so far since I've been there, is just talking with the strength coaches on how we can learn movement patterns inside the weight room as well, and how to get them moving properly. I think you can really develop some good offensive linemen when you do some of those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so obviously, Coach Hensley, that's a lot of stuff that, the strength coach will kind of coordinate and figure out as far as their off-season work then.
Yeah, for sure. But that's been one of the biggest differences. We've met quite a bit with the strength coaches. I came from the NAI level now to FCS program, and we have a lot of meetings with those strength coaches and ask them, and they kind of talk to us about how guys are moving, and we kind of give our opinions on how guys are moving and what can we do to fix some of those movement patterns and correct some of those imbalances and things like that.
That's good stuff right there. Coach McClanahan, you want to add anything?
I could spend a lot of time diving into what you guys are doing in South Dakota thing, because that's something I've been trying to get more involved with the last 2 years. And I spoke a little bit about it, Coach G, the last time I was on, about some of the things we try to do. But I think for us, the off season, we use more, like kind of about what you're talking about is trying to correct movement patterns and like really dive into, okay, my freshman can't gain ground on his first step, or he can't get his second step going vertical. What is the overlying issue with that? Is that a movement issue? Does he lack single leg strength? Does he lack hip mobility or ankle mobility? Or is it just he doesn't understand how to recruit those muscles? Is it what is the core issue there? So trying to go back to the drawing board, I guess, from a basics perspective of just human movement. But then kind of what Coach Schiff and Coach Ciosi were saying was it's got to be directed towards kind of what you do. I think otherwise it's you're remiss from doing it, or at least you have to be able to draw a parallel to it. Otherwise the guys are gonna have a hard time buying in because I know we've done stuff in the past and the guys are like, what the hell are we doing? Like, well, I got a band wrapped around 3 parts of my body, but I think it's been a net positive for us in that way. And then, yeah, I think like most of you guys, week to week during the fall is really specific to game plan. Like, okay, we're playing a 3-3 stack. Well, we need to work head up technique double teams because we ain't going to get that any other time, or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Awesome. Coach Yossi, we'll go with your question.
Sure. More of a game planning scheme one. Something that I've been asking a lot of people over the past few months. From a run game and pass game perspective, how many run schemes and how many pass pro schemes is too many to have? Like, one of the big things we looked at was we did a lot of stuff last year in both aspects to try to make up for some physical lack of stuff and stuff like that. What do you think realistically you can, especially now for shortened camp and no spring ball, what can you go into a season with as a coach? How many run plays I'm going to have, and then how many protections am I going to realistically carry?
For sure. Coach Schiffman, we'll start with you.
Oh, boy. I think I was just actually talking to a coach about this the other day, just as a kind of randomly. I think 3 and 3. I think you can go in with 3 run schemes and 3 pass protections and be successful because, you can do so many different things with those 3s. You can have tags, you can have, adaptations and everything, but I think you need 2's pushing it. I think 3 is kind of that bare minimum to be successful, and it depends on can you be creative in those 3? Can you get can you run all of them from different personnels, from different formations? What can so there's a lot of factors that play into it, but I'm gonna go 3 and 3. That's my final answer.
Would you also just to kind of piggyback? Would you also say it may depend on just the group of kids you have? Like if they're able to handle more, would you add on more? You're still like, no, we'll just keep it. We'll keep it where it's at.
I think that depends on. That's a in-season kind of question. That's it because I've been both had that happen both ways where. It's I've seen it happen where at the beginning of the season we tried to run some zone and some gap, and then by the end of the year we were 95% gap schemes. And then I've seen it, on the flip side, we're trying to do 3 or 4 different protections, but just with the numbers and with the bodies and with the way we did things, by the end of the year we were essentially in 1 protection. So I've seen it both ways, in the positive and in the negative.
For sure. Coach Hensley, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I think it's a couple factors like you talked about, the group of players you have. And sometimes that doesn't always mean experience, sometimes they're just able to process more, will pick up more things. So trying to gauge that with your players. The other thing is how much can you simplify? How much can you make different schemes the same concept for your offensive line? And I think that's crucial, when you talk about gap schemes. I mean, do you have a system that you teach gap schemes so that in reality GT counter, GY counter, and power are all essentially the same scheme? You're just changing the responsibilities of who's doing what part. As far as protections go, I think you can do the same. Is simplifying it. Is it full man? Is it full slide? Is it half man, half slide? And then on that, you can just add tags like max or scat pro. Different things like that, but I think the real key is how well you can simplify. And obviously, there's always going to be a limit. I mean, you could be the greatest teacher, coach ever. Your players are always going to have a cap on what that limit is. I wish I had the perfect answer for what that is. I don't. But I think Coach Schiffman talking about 3-3. I think that's a great philosophy to have there. We run quite a bit here at USD, and I ran quite a bit when I was an offense coordinator at Dakota Wesleyan. And sometimes I do think it hurt us. I wanted to try to hurt the defense by doing this and this. Well, at the end of the day, if your guys can't understand it, it doesn't matter how great of a concept it is. So just trying to narrow that down, simplify it there. And it's at the end of the day, it's what can your players do? What can they handle? And try and just get a gauge of that. But it's a hard question to answer specifically.
Yep.
Coach McClanahan.
I agree with a lot of what's been said. It's everything in this game is about what your players are capable of and you finding out that, but also you got to maximize, so I guess my answer would really be the schemes that best and in and out are what you need to be fighting to run as far as what you can make the best, because is there really that much of a difference between, in most of our schools, a zone offensive lineman and a gap scheme offensive lineman? I mean, I don't know what the hell that even means. But, maybe you could draw one up in a lab, but most of us, as much as we recruit, we don't get to pick them that much. So what do you know best? Like, for instance, like me, I was a guy that I didn't know gap scheme as well as I knew zone, because that's what I ran in college, and I'm relatively inexperienced. And so I wanted to run zone. And so inside zone, I think needs outside zone or something outside. So you need to do what you know best. And I think starting with 3 is a really good place to start, because I think when you start getting to number 4, a lot of us start getting to what do we really know about this 4th concept and what can we really problem solve on game day for our guys. So, if you don't know power and power is your 4th concept and you're getting blown up somewhere, do you really have an answer when you should have probably just ran zone one more time? So the way that I went about it when I got the run game coordinator tag was I know zone best, and then what's going to stop zone when, what's hardest for us to run zone against. And then my 3rd or 4th concept, if I felt like I had a group that could handle a 4th concept, was what's a good complement to that. So if you're an inside-outside zone team and you think like an odd front double eagle lineman's going to eat you alive, well, then you better have a C-gap power or C-gap counter kind of thing to complement that. Or you need some kind of answer outside of that to get the ball to the perimeter or however you might see that happening. So you need to pick things. And then you can add more, I think, personally, the stronger your core is. So if you've been running a system at your school for 10 years – you can add a lot more tags and a lot more specialties and a lot more variations week to week. But if you are, like, for instance, we're in the 2nd year in a row running a new offense basically at Drake. We're going to have to probably ease back on some of the crazy things that we're going to do. So, and that's okay, at least until we establish a really strong core. So being a jack of all trades is not what anybody wants to be. So pick something to get good at. And to me, that's 2 things you know best and a compliment. And then you can vary that after you get really good. But as far as protections go, I kind of look at it the same way, but there's so many variations of protections. Like, you got to have a good 6-man, you got to have a good 5-man, and then actually you don't have to do that, but 1 full slide, so that's 3 right there. And then I look at 2 or 3 play actions at the most I want to carry, and then 2 ways to move the pocket, whether that's a boot or a sprint out in every game. And but as soon as you start varying that little stuff, it takes away from everything else that you do best.
All right. There you go. Coach, you want to add to your question? Add anything?
Yeah, no, I think those are all great points. And I agree, I think, we look at it in terms of like families. So like, to me, our inside zone and our mid zone are the same. We block it the same, the path of the back and all that change. But in theory, the training is the same. Coach Ensley, your point exactly. I look at counter and guard tackle counter the same to me. Like, it's the same skills that we would teach the tackle if he was pulling on the backside of pin and pull, So, we'll carry 4 to 5, but it's all within the same families. We got our gap family, our zone family, our pin and pull family. So, and then protection wise, I think, like you guys said, Coach McKenney, like 6-man, 5-man, and then you got your max and your couple play actions. So, It's all about what you can practice successfully. That's what it comes down to. So
That's true.
The one thing that we ran into at Drake, I'm sure you guys have all probably seen it before, is you can be doing stuff really well up front. Like you can group stuff in families really well up front, but sometimes the guys in the backfield don't see it right.
Yep.
And I think that depending on what you're running is harder on backs to carry a lot as well. Like you can't forget about those guys and how many ways you want to run it. Like with different backs and different quarterbacks running the ball as well, it takes time to develop, especially I think when you're a zone-heavy team, like wide zone or outside zone, however you guys want to describe it, I think is one of the harder things for backs to really wrap their head around. It takes a lot of reps. So it's from I guess a bigger picture lens. Also tight ends, they got to know a lot. Like how much are you putting on those guys and fullbacks? The O-line just run blocks and just pass blocks, not to oversimplify the position we all love, but there's a lot of other things on, and how much are you putting on the quarterbacks to get you in and out of schemes and things like that. So that kind of zooms the picture out a little bit from that perspective as far as what can you really be good at. You can block probably a decent amount really well, but can you run it efficiently as an entire offense? And how much are the rule tweaks and changes when you vary things adding up as a whole?
Absolutely. No, that's a good point. Coach Schiffman, we'll go with your question.
Yeah. So my question is, I'm trying to get a little deeper on this. What's something amongst your offensive line that you really had to focus on this past season that was, a weakness, so to speak? What was something that you guys all had to kind of work on more than maybe other aspects of the game?
Awesome. Coach Hensley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, this last year I had an offensive line that had one returning start, not starter, just start, So we were extremely young and inexperienced. So, when we're talking about how many schemes you can do and all that kind of stuff, we did have to pare it down a little bit. And just that you can't teach experience. You have to have those reps. It's going to take those times. So one of the biggest things is we did try to amp it up in practice and have a lot of team reps so that they can see those live bullets coming at them and everything like that. So that was the biggest thing, is try to replicate in game as much as possible and try to just hammer in. But I also think when you have young guys, it's important you don't overcoach them. They don't know the details. They don't understand what you're talking about. I went from, so my first year at Dakota Wesleyan, I had all were returning starters. I had three of them were 3-year starters. And in that room, you talk completely different than the next year. I have no returning starters. You have to learn how to talk to them. And that's the biggest thing that we worked on, is just those game situations and trying to understand football and the why behind each concept. Why are you running this? Why do I want you to double team here? Because once you learn the why behind it, it becomes a lot easier instead of just getting told what to do. I think you're able to just play a lot better and a lot faster.
No, absolutely. Explaining the whys is extremely important. I feel that. I feel like since, obviously I don't coach offensive line, but with my position group, the school I'm at, man, I feel like I've had to overhaul every year. So it's always like I return one starter every year. So it's like I got to start from ground zero, which is great. You know what I mean? Like you kind of, really pushes you as a coach to really hammer home those fundamentals and techniques and get those guys caught up. So, yeah, totally different conversation.
For sure. If you're teaching them what to do, at that point, you have to tell them every single situation that could happen. If you're just telling them what to do on this, then you have to teach everything. Whereas if you teach them why, then they're truly playing football and they're understanding. And they understand when they get different coverages, when the safety rolls over the top, there's probably a blitzer coming, different things like that. When they can understand why a deep, kind of like Mike, you were talking about, is like us learning from the defensive side. If we can kind of teach, not overhaul it too much, but teaching them why, when you see certain things, what's happening, why is that guy covering so much ground over there? It's because he has to replace a blitzer. Different things like that, I think, can be really valuable as an O-line.
Especially now, because I feel like football IQ has decreased over the years. So, it's crazy. Sometimes, we'll talk to these kids, they don't even watch football anymore. So you really, like you said, you have to explain the why. I think that's vital for sure. Coach McClanahan, we'll go with you.
Just to touch on that last point real quick, I think we spent more time early on talking general football. Like hey, look, this is how we identify these defenders. This is why we call them this person. In the past, I had kind of skipped some of that stuff because it was like, is it really important for them to know what that I call him the same linebacker? When it's like, hey, it's a linebacker kind of in my space, you know. I underestimated how important I thought that I think that stuff really was. But then I think this year for us specifically, we struggled with we switched from a full tracks zone of step to your zone and kind of work your angle and your space and go. And if anything works across your face, let it go, to a combo zone, heavy double team type of team. And we switched. There was a little bit of back and forth on what we should and shouldn't be doing in the room, but just hammering home that mindset, because they had a lot of the guys, we had an experienced group, but they had been doing the tracks for a few years. And that was a lot harder to break than I realized. The amount of communication we had to do, the amount of just different mindset of double teaming and then understanding various fronts and how things fit was really important. So really teaching defensive structure ahead of time helped us do that, and teaching the defense that we were seeing week to week really helped them understand, again, like you were saying, Coach, why we were double teaming, like why does this matter? And then building on that success helped us kind of climb that mountain a little bit. But we seriously struggled. I mean, we could not do jack on the ground the first couple of weeks of the season because we just did not understand really where we needed to be and why we needed to be there until we got a little bit of that experience under our belt. But it quickly progressed once we got that why, I think, kind of broke through that ice, I guess you could say. But and we're still communicating, graduated a few guys, but the communication piece is definitely something we got to spend a lot of time on. And luckily, the Zoom meetings help.
That'll do it, right? It's a good time to do it. Coach Yas, we'll go you.
I agree 100% with those guys are saying. Like the education of our guys is so important in terms of identifying pictures, understanding the why defenses are doing it. One thing that this was our first year there as a staff. We got there last January. One of the first things, Coach Ship, I think you and I talked about this a little bit in the past, that I kind of did was when I took the job is I watched all the film from the previous year, and not for the scheme or anything like that. I wanted to see what the kids were able to do. And one of like the glaring things that like really stood out from a physical standpoint was the lack of like strike with enhanced, like with pass pro, with run game. And like we teach first day, we teach eyes, feet, hands. Like the hands are the last thing to get there. Your eyes take you to where you got to go. Your feet take you to the block. And then your hands are the coup de grace. But we literally didn't strike. Like we grabbed guys, tried to push. So one thing that we really honed on all offseason last year, from spring, winter, into summer, and then post this season that we got better at during the year, but we really did was we did a lot of hand fighting and hand striking stuff. You know, we did boxing, creative things to just get guys learn how to use their hands. And I kind of joked my first week there. I asked every guy, okay, be honest, raise your hand if you've ever been in a fight. Like, I think I had 2 guys in my room, and a few kids like, yeah, I fought my brother. I'm like, no, I mean like, bare knuckle, like, you're out with your friends having a good time. Your rival neighborhood gang comes in, but different time, different world.
Gotta put that on the questionnaire, Coach.
Yeah. Exactly. But really, like, it's one of those things. We had to teach our guys how to use their hands, and part of that's recruiting. Definitely like the type of kid we look for that. But the other thing is, especially if you're a high school coach listening, like what you have is what you have. Identify your guys' weaknesses and really build on them. There's no excuse when you inherit a roster. Whereas high school, college, youth, you have what you have. You gotta get that better. So that was a big thing for us.
Absolutely. Coach Schiffman, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what everyone said so far, and I think the biggest thing for us was kind of understanding the why of the play, and like I talked about the communication piece, understanding where the moving parts are going, so to speak, and understanding kind of, like I said, the why and who, the why and the who, I guess, it was the big thing for us. So understanding the big picture of things.
No, for sure. Coach Ensley, we're going to go with your second question here.
All right, this might be hard if you guys don't have drill tape on you, but basically, is there any unique drill that you do that would be very beneficial, that maybe it's not the typical drill that you see all the time, that you think is really beneficial. You know, you can explain it or share the screen, however you guys want to do it. But yeah.
Coach McClanahan, we'll start with you.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. I was really hoping I was going to go last on this one, but
We're maintaining the same order.
yeah. Okay. I don't know if there's anything super unique that we do. I tell you, we don't use chutes. Like, I've never used one, and I know that's not like super uncommon but like I've had the head coach ask me, more than one head coach, do you want to get a chute? I'm like, yeah, not really. Mostly because I believe pad level is built in the weight room more than anything. You can build good habits and good demeanor habits, and we'll do things like that. Like, we use med balls a lot on the field to help with those things. I think more, I don't know if it's really unique, to be honest with you, but more of what we do in the off season, I think, is a little bit more unique, as far as we spend a lot of time doing functional movement corrective stuff. I think Coach Ensley, like, this is probably similar stuff to what you guys are doing, or that approach. But then we wrap bands around our guys when we have a little more time to spend on an individual and lighter workload movements, like in the summer and the winter, where we're going to talk about, okay, driving off, like a drive step. Okay, well, how do you drive off that post foot? Well, okay, I can wrap a band around you and force you to actually drive that foot into the ground and extend that knee and lock out, or to create that torque, whichever coaching point you're using to do that. That's, I don't know how many guys are doing that, but that's certainly been a more unique thing for us to do in the offseason. We don't do it in the fall because we don't have time. It's a lot more of just skill building than it is drilling, I guess, is kind of, I look at it differently. Like, drilling to me is kind of like game planning, like specific drills against this defense, whereas skill building is like, how do I move better? Yeah, that's probably it, really. I don't know. Be interested to hear the other answers.
No, for sure. Coach Sias, we'll go with you.
I'll share a weird one. It's not weird. It's just, can I share the screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Coach Mo taught me this at FIU, and basically it's just combining mirror drill with if you're strapped for time. Let's see if this works. You guys can see that okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's essentially just combining mirror drill and twist pickup, sort of, and working independent hands. We call it dolphin drill because when I was GAing for him at FIU, we went to the Dolphins and saw them do it. So the defense is always just reading the eyes of the coach. All we're working is independent hands. We're mirroring a guy, so we're getting our mirror drill working so we don't have to double work the drill. We'll work short set, quick set, and then there's always a transition to a vertical and finish where we'll stack the hip. Like I said, it's nothing unique. It's nothing like extraordinary by any means. I like it because we get to work just a bunch of different sets. It's a good leg burner. We just work from short to high and all that. So it's something easy that we do that the guys like. It takes you can get 4 guys going at one time, so you get everyone involved. So
That's good stuff.
Everybody in America is going to be doing that drill, just so you know.
everyone does it already.
Yeah.
Coach Sifman, go ahead.
I wish I had a fancy answer, a sexy answer for this, but every drill I do, I've stolen from somebody else, either from something I've seen online or something that I've learned in a clinic. So, I mean, I try to keep things as simple as possible. I'm one of those guys that if I can understand it, they can understand it. So we really don't do too much exotic things in regards to drills. So I'm giving a lame answer. I'm sorry.
All good, Coach. All good. Coach Ensley, go ahead.
Yeah, let me share the screen real quick so I can show you guys. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Perfect. We call this the stop a penetrator drill. And like Coach Schiffman said, I mean, you stealing drills from everybody, right? That's what we do. This was from Matt Jones with the lineman lunch. And basically it's teaching when you have the penetrator and pass protection to get bumped off and come back to the looper, essentially, is what you're working on. So right here, you'd be stepping down to stop the penetrator. And then this would be your offensive lineman next to you. So if this is the right tackle, this is the right guard, bumping you off and this guy has to yell over as he hits you, and he bumps you off, and you set back ready for the looper. And you got to kind of change the distances that you're going with this. And I like it because it kind of takes picking up games. We saw a ton of games, and we continue to see a lot of games. You know, me was being at USD in the Missouri Valley, so it just breaks it down a little bit shorter. But I saw this, I really liked it, and then we saw a lot of transfer over in games as well. Just teaching those guys how to take on that penetrator and bump them off. One of the things we started doing too, because you know everyone's going to start cheating drills. These guys started leaning into the bag as they were ready for it. They figured out the distance, so we started messing with these guys with like backpedal and just make this guy go super far, or this guy would come running, crashing in to bump that guy off of it. So it's just trying to pick up those, you know, those ETs and different things like that. So it's been really good for us. And you know, like I said, I stole it from Coach Jones.
That's good stuff, Coach. Coach McClanahan, we'll go with your next question.
Yeah. Let's see here. So one thing, and this is something that I've always struggled with. How do you balance your role in game planning? I guess this is going to vary depending on what guys' roles are. I don't know. How do you balance what you're doing game planning versus position scouting? So, like, what are you doing as far as balancing those two? Do you integrate them in some way? Is there something that you're working on trying to do? I guess kind of clue me into your process, like when you're preparing in that way, and how you balance being an O-line coach versus trying to build a run game or protect or whatever it might be, problem solving for your OC, or how much you're involved might, you know, dictate that question as well.
Sure, good question. Coach Yasser, let's start with you.
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. So if it's a traditional game week and we're playing on a Saturday, I take my Thursday night a little bit into Friday morning to really make a brief like personnel tape for the O-line only, where I'll look at pass rush moves that guys do, couple key blitzes, you know, something, you know, run tendencies, just how they play their technique. And I'll have that for the Sunday. So when we first meet, I can give them something small. Sometimes it's something as small as like 10, 15 plays in a cut up, you know. That and the personnel report, I like to have them have that as soon as possible so that Sunday they can see, okay, hey, here's the videotape and here's what these guys do. Because then from there, Sunday into Monday, it's all game planning for the OC. It's, you know, okay, here's what we're going to get in these formations. I drop all the run game for the head coach for every look they'll see, all that. Monday night, I hand it to them. I tell them this is what my belief is. We're lucky. We practice Tuesday afternoon, even though I wish we were mornings. So we have a little extra time in our game planning because we go all the way till Tuesday practice at 3. So like Monday through Tuesday morning is just me getting our run game plan ready, and then what protections are going to match what our pass game coordinator OC is telling us we're going to run. So I'll split time between that. You know, I try to do more of the stuff with my guys Sunday post game correcting and scout prep until we meet again Tuesday. And then Monday when they come in, I'll just have a tape for them ready to watch with all the stuff. But I don't do a whole lot with them on Monday from an O-line perspective. It's kind of like they come in and do what they need to do. That's my game plan time with our head coach, you know, and coordinator.
Sure.
Do you give them stuff like to fill out or to look at specifically to kind of supplement what you're not going to give them?
Yeah, I'll give them like specific things. Like I'll tell them by Monday, like, hey, listen, here's like the formations what we think we're going to run, or here's the plays we're going to run. Here's a cut up of this opponent against them running these plays. Like it might not look exactly how we do it. Here's an opponent. Here's the 6-man pass pro teams have done against them. Here's how they're blitzing it. So when we get to the Tuesday meeting, they already know. You know, we're not huddle, so they got to come into the office, which I think is kind of a benefit too, though. Even though we're getting the thundercloud with Exos, because I think it gets them around the office. They'll pull me out of a meeting for 2 seconds, kind of just talk about it. But yeah, I'll give them stuff throughout the week, early on and all the way till the end to do. And then Thursday, just kind of once everything's done, we meet every Thursday as an O-line. We'll have a meal or something for them, and I'll give them the scouting report, the final tip sheet. They already have the scouting report, but I'll give them the final tip sheet and just reaffirm what I've talked to them about throughout the week. So.
I'm sure that's good. That's good stuff, Coach. Coach Shippen?
Yeah, so we kind of, by Thursday, Friday, we're sort of looking ahead. Not looking ahead, that's a horrible term to use, but we're sort of game planning for the next week just because there's nothing much else we can do. So by Sunday, we'll sort of have a personnel done so that we can give them a scouting report Monday. Monday we'll kind of watch a little bit of film, but we do a lot of our film. We're another school. We practice all in the afternoon. So we'll take Monday and Tuesday and kind of meet as an offensive staff and talk about here's what we're going to see defensively on these downs and distances and what plays we like. And so our offensive coordinator does a good job of getting input from everybody. And then we'll watch film Monday. We meet as a group Tuesday morning before the technical school day starts to watch film again, more O-line specific stuff in preparation. But, they've kind of got everything they need by Wednesday after practice so that it's sort of just reviews Thursday, Friday, and then, kickoff on Saturday. So it's sort of up to us as coaches. We have to do a good job of breaking down film and looking at the personnel and letting them know kind of what those guys, defensive guys' strengths and weaknesses are. But, they've got a pretty in-depth scouting report Monday by 4:00 that they can look at and keep eyes on for the rest of the week.
For sure. Coach Ensley.
Yeah, it's something when I was O-line coach before I became offense coordinator, I think the personnel stuff is something that I did too much almost. I almost bogged them down thinking about a bunch of different things, And what I've found, when I became an offense coordinator now with the staff with 3 other coaches on offense and, now my priority is game planning. I think that's really the shift there for me was now it's all game planning. I had to make sure that stuff was done. So my personnel reports weren't as detailed, which actually I think helped my guys better. They weren't overloaded because in reality, I mean, we'd all like to think that those guys get those personnel reports and they look through every inch of it and memorize it and know everything that's on it. That's not what happens most of the time. The guys that want the information from that report are the guys in your meetings that are taking down notes that come to you and talk to you about, hey, that defensive end on 3rd and long, he likes to do a spin move inside. They're the guys that already know that info, and that's really what I found is when I went away from doing the huge, long personnel reports that it actually benefited my guys quite a bit. So I'm interested to see, going to USD. I haven't been there yet for season, so I don't know how the game planning versus personnel is doing. With 2 O-line guys, I'm sure we're going to get some pretty good details, but it's, again, how are we going to relay those details so that it's not overloading our guys, but giving them the important information. Hey, here's his main move. Here's his counter when you stop it. And then when you're talking about personnel game planning as well, I think that's really important. Hey, maybe they have a stud in you don't want to run at. You want to read them that day. Different things like that. And understanding where their key players are and how you can manipulate this game plan to beat those guys and how you can give your guys extra help. When you're talking about like a settle and sort protection where it's all manned up, maybe you want your center to help your uncovered guard to help the center who's going against an All-American nose tackle compared to another week when you're playing against a stud end and you want to give your tackle that extra help on the inside. Switching it up game planning wise, I think is really important. How you want to go against the personnel you're going against to really attack them, and what is their personnel? What techniques are they using too, as far as game planning? Is the corner off a lot? Different things like that. That's getting away from the line stuff, but I think it's important. You have to have a mix of it, of the game planning and personnel.
Absolutely, Coach McClanahan.
I think, man, I used to be kind of like you, Coach Ensley, is like, I'm gonna really dive into like these individual D linemen or linebackers or whoever it is I'm scouting. Cause I thought, hey, the more information I give these guys, the better they're going to be prepared to do that. But what I think I ended up doing was I didn't focus, I think, enough on what we did technique-wise from the previous game. I didn't zero in on us. My focus wasn't internal, it was external, I guess you could say. And that became a shift in an unhealthy balance. So this year I did not focus much on personnel. I went through and we added to our breakdown sheet. I don't know if this is normal that we didn't do this before or not. I don't know what's normal. I've only been at Drake, but we started adding. We concepted every play, whether it was inside zone, a wide zone, pin and pull, or whatever it is, and any variations in our breakdowns, so that all I had to do was sort it, and I could send all my guys the inside zones, every inside zone, whether it was split zone, skip zone, read zone, didn't matter. So they could see what those angles were going to look like against those D linemen. And then I basically gave them, okay, you got to do 20 inside zones, 20 wide zones. And, if we were going to run any power or counter that week, you got to do 10 of those. And you got to basically grade the D line that you're going to go. If you're an interior guy, you're just grading the interior guys. And so to give them kind of a limited scope on who to look at and allow them to basically take that, not off my plate entirely, but give them some ownership to that process because they know what they're going to struggle with versus those guys more than I'm probably ever going to know, even though I'd like to think that I know my players that well. Like, deep down, my right tackle really knows whether he struggles with a speed rush or not. And then he had to watch 25 or 30, 5-step protections. And they basically graded those D linemen, and it was pretty easy. It was just like a plus or minus system. So, and I never made the amount mandatory, but it really helped. It helped them. I probably collected it too late during the week in hindsight. Probably should have collected it on Thursday or something like that, instead of like on game day or the Friday before. But that way it shifted almost all my attention to game planning. And it helped me a lot being new to that role, at least in that that degree of that role. But yeah, I think Coach, like Ciosi said, I think, my early focus Sunday and Monday was, or I guess you could say the earliest part was I'm trying to get them something Sunday or Monday that was personnel based. So they could at least have a starting point on what kind of players we're going to see. And I got to know what kind of players we're going to see from a game. Like Coach Ensley said, like they got an all-American defensive end, or like a few years ago we played San Diego, they had the FCS all-time sack leader. It's like, well, I better know about that guy and what we got and what our plan is. Whether we stop him or not is irrelevant. I won't bring that up. But you got to know about him and plan for it and prepare your OC and your guys for him.
No doubt. No doubt. Coach Ciosi, we'll go to your next question.
Sure. This is both, I guess, kind of scheme and like off-season physicals. So postseason, how do you self-scout your O-line in terms of identifying what you need to fix on the field and off the field? Like, what do you look at as an O-line coach when the season's done?
That's a good question. Coach Schiffen.
We were starting this process, obviously with everything going on, it kind of got cut short. But we were starting to break down just as a staff, an offensive staff, kind of we're a huddle team, so creating clips of all like sacks, all of our negative plays, and sort of looking at them and seeing what we did poorly and what we could fix from a individual one-by-one setting, and as well as kind of what we can do better as an offense. So we were just sort of doing that, and we're still kind of doing that. With everything that's going on, we've got our, we're doing a lot of Zoom meetings, and I'm having guys sort of pick some of their bad plays and talk about it as a group on a Zoom meeting, or pick some of their good plays and talk about it. And I want to hear from them I want to hear them point out what they're doing well or not doing well. So, a lot of it is just having them look at it and see it and kind of understand, hey, look, this is what you did with your feet. This is why you got beat on the inside. This is what you did, with your hands. This is why the guy got your outside shoulder. And so just little things like that. But we were, like I said, we were starting to really push into that hard right when everything kind of the shit hit the fan, so to speak.
Yeah. No doubt. Coach Ensley.
Yeah. The first thing I start with self eval is just, are they going to the right guy? You know, how well did I do to teach the scheme? You know, if there's guys getting cut loose all over the place, that's a problem, and that's a teaching problem that I got to fix and get my guys to understand. You know, so the first thing I look at is those mental errors, especially the crucial ones. So I try to find that. The next thing I look at is really a self evaluation of the bad plays and the sacks, you know, kind of like Coach Schiffman talked about, like what really happened, you know. And sometimes you really have to evaluate those. I mean, sometimes you're just going against a stud and he beats you. That's completely different than taking a bad first set and you got your hip ran by just an average guy. To me, it's completely different. So trying to evaluate why the sack happened, and not just the sack, but pressures or plays that, you know, those errors, you know, and that's really what takes the most amount of time, because the sacks are easy to find. You hit sacks and you can look at them all. But then you go through, you know, pass protections and look at what were your successful pass protections, what were your unsuccessful pass protections, and unsuccessful could be pressured or different things like that, and really what got you beat, you know. And really when you look at it, a lot of it, like I went at the start of this whole thing, was about movement and learning how to move properly. And okay, so how do I teach my guy how to move properly? You know, if he's always opening his gate on his kick set, well, how do we teach him how to close that gate down, stay square as he's setting? That's what we need to fix, you know. And I think that's crucial, is learning why the play didn't work or why the block wasn't successful. Like Coach Schiffman talked about, having your players evaluate their plays. I think that's a really interesting thing to do, especially with offensive linemen, because sometimes they'll pick out a play where their technique isn't the best and they're just overpowering a guy or something like that. And it's interesting to hear their input on why that was such a good play for them, you know, different things like that. And some guys will hit plays that were really successful, you know, and that's, you know, showing that team kind of aspect of the whole thing. And other guys will pick plays where they dominated, but it was a sack or a tackle for loss, you know. And that's always interesting to kind of see what they come up with. I think that's a really good strategy, especially with right now. I mean, they have time on their hands, and you got to have to find creative ways to get your guys engaged with these Zoom meetings instead of just talking at them. If they can bring something to the table and everything like that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point that both you guys hit on. Absolutely, Coach McClanahan.
I think I guess I'll talk more about just what my process is the first thing I do is I break everything up into kind of general concepts. So all my inside zones, anything that's the same for the O-line, I guess across the board, I want to look at in that way. And I watch it in game order to start with, so I can see where we started, which this year was pretty shitty, and then where we ended, which was a lot better. So you can see what did we suck at to start, and what did we get better? What did we actually correct? Because I want to know, what am I on track thinking that we are able to do what I think we're doing, if that makes sense. Is my perception matching the actual outcome? Like I can think we're a really good split zone team, but then I look at it and go, well, we were actually garbage. We got spilled every time, you know, or whatever it might be, or we're not getting to our linebackers. And then highlighting and pulling out any assignment error. Any assignment error automatically gets bookmarked, and I pull it out and I try to see. And then I always take notes when I'm watching these, trying to any commonalities, any themes. Like, are we constantly missing -1 from the point? Are we constantly missing on a double team? Are we constantly too heavy? Was I not teaching that? And then does it get corrected throughout the year? So like week 11, we might not miss anybody coming off a double team in a perfect world. But week 1, we couldn't get off a dang double team to save our life, you know, like, so we fixed that issue. I don't need to stress that this offseason as much. But we couldn't win on the inside V on the front side inside zone, but we could in the beginning. So, you know, what was the disconnect there? So that's what I'm looking for, is differences basically between week 1 and week 11, or any gaps that you can look at. Usually break it up between bye weeks if you have that luxury of having those in there. And then the next thing I do is and then I want to watch what we did well. You know, take out anything where guys are basically just making guys miss, like where if you have a great back, take that out. Don't look at it. When did you block it really well? When did you get great movement, and what were those factors that led to that? Like, did they have just a terrible nose guard and you just wiped the floor with them all day? Or was it something you were doing game plan wise, formationally, that they gave you that was exposed, that you identified, or you're just best guy and their worst guy, or anything in between? And then I want to watch all the negative plays by concept. Again, always by concept, because I can watch a sack next to a bad outside zone and it's not going to tell me jack. And then I think, like Coach Ensley said, and I think like a lot of you guys probably do, is I identify quarterback pressures, not just sacks. So sacks are a part of that, but like, I'd be interested to hear how you guys identify that. But to me, it was anything where we're hitting, depending on the drop, was what it was in the protection. If it's a traditional 5-step or drop back pro, hits his third step and can't get a hitch before he's displaced, essentially. That was kind of my general thing. Or anytime he's flushed from the pocket, I'd put it in there and then watch it. We watch all this stuff as a staff too, eventually, because I want to hear what the OC says, the quarterback coach, the receiver coach, the tight ends coach has to say, because then we might hear a common theme. Well, this player was an issue for us, or this group was an issue for us. And we need to either get them off the field more often, or we need to change up what we're doing, or what we're asking of them is too much. That player is not capable. That group isn't capable of carrying this burden. So we need to spread it out some way. And that was good for us to do this year. This is the first year we did it as a staff, or more inclusive as a staff. And it paid massive dividends, I think, coming to a conclusion of who we wanted to be the following year. From a scheme standpoint, especially in the run game more than anything. And then we had all kinds of issues in some other aspects, but that was really more of kind of where I took it from. It was very, very methodical and systematic in that way.
There you go. Coach Siasi, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do the same way, by the way, Coach, about the pressures. I look at it as, can they complete their drop they're supposed to get at and then hitch into it? And if they can, or if they're pushed off the spot, I agree 100%. That's pressure. So, no, we do the same thing in terms of, I'll watch every single concept first. Like Coach said, I'll break it down into zones, inside zone, gap, all that. We'll go from there. We'll go through pressures, all that, protections. I like to look at the efficiency of it. Why was it efficient? Was it efficient? This personnel, all that. Outside of the scheme stuff, I'm very lucky. We have a really good system where a lot of guys on staff, we get our indie film. So I film pretty much as much indie as I can as possible. And so I like to look, once I'm done with all the postseason schematic breakdown and all that, I really like to go back and I'll watch every scheme and look for the physical breakdowns. Like, why were we good on this scheme? Why were we not? And then I go and corroborate that with the drill work. Like, did the drill work really match what we were doing? Were we successful because of that? And over the years, I've eliminated stuff. I've added stuff. I've kind of tweaked stuff. That's done more. The scheme stuff is done as a full offense. I'll watch it as my own, then I'll watch it with full staff. But like over, especially Christmas break before the convention, recruiting picks up, like that's like that time for me to really kind of look at what am I teaching, and that leads into the self scout, what we need to do in the weight room, in the training room, stuff to change our bodies, and So I look at the self scout, the O-line, as scheme, and then personnel. Like what are we doing as coaches?
How much indie film are you watching during the week, Coach? Week to week, any?
At night, like before I go to bed, I'll breeze through it. That's kind of like when my Friday morning I get in the office before a weight trip. When we have a weight trip, so we'll be on a bus. I like to road ready it so I can watch it. I'll kind of look and say, okay, this is why. I'll very rarely get to show it to my guys. Like if there's like a major issue, I'll pull them in real quick and be like, hey, look, here's what you're doing wrong in Indy. It's huge for us in the off season, and they come and watch that even more than the scheme stuff. So, and then I go back and look at what I did a good job and what I did a bad job of. So
we used a lot of indie film in the beginning because I didn't have any game film of the new way we were doing things. And so it was almost like we got to teach the drills before we can really get good at the scheme, and constantly correct the drills. Everybody wants more indie time and more team time and more everything time. But that was big for us. Just this concept of zone doubling to us. Like I said, we were all tracks before, was just so foreign to them. Just getting them to fit after one step into a double rather than take 9 steps. It was like, okay, you can see the difference. And then we turn on some – luckily we had the NFL film stuff too to help, which was good. But, man, the indie film was big.
How much NFL film do you watch with your guys?
We're doing a lot now, but I always preface it with there's some great things about the NFL film that they screw up the same way we screw up. Number one, they do things perfect in a way that we want to do them sometimes, but then also they're going to do things that we're never going to be able to do. I always say those three things whenever we watch NFL film because that's the truth. You're never going to be able to jump set out to a guy that's 6 yards outside of you. It just ain't going to happen. Like, good luck. But that being said, like we do it a lot now. I like to use it because not so much from a technique perspective, but some of it, if it's new to us, like if I can find it, like when we were new to run a wide zone, it was really good to watch like the Niners and the Chiefs run that because they were just putting on clinic after clinic of how to double team and stab according to leverage of linebackers and things like that. But we use it more. I use it more now for basically front ID, like throwing them a bunch of stuff. Like I would go back and identify a bunch of zone runs and stuff like that, or drop back passes and go, okay, call the front, ID the point, talk me through who's the slide side, who's the man side, what are your combos here. And I just use an Excel printout like quiz where they basically go play side to backside for their combos and their point man. That way all five guys are IDing the point, all five guys are IDing the front, all five guys are making every combo call. It's probably similar to what a lot of guys would do in like a quiz on like a Thursday or a Friday in game week, but we're doing that now just because we've got so much time on our hands, and I'm doing one-on-one meetings with guys to go back and review it, and it's almost all NFL film. Unless I need something really specific. Like we're not seeing a lot of 3-3 stack in the NFL, but we have a team in our conference that runs one. So I want to have some of that film put aside.
That's a good question. Coach Schiffman, your last question.
Yeah, I'm going to go kind of simple on this. How are you guys, after the game Saturday, how do you guys grade your guys?
Coach Hensley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I do overall. Like, did you do the job? Like, I have a few different grades, but the first one is just overall execution. Did you get the job done or not? Because it could be the worst technique ever, but if you got the job done, that's what matters at the end of the day. Now, we need to fix the technique issue, but if you got the job done, I'm going to give you a plus for that. And then technique is the second one, and then attitude is the third one. So are you bringing some aggression to it? Are you getting after guys, things like that? And it's just a plus or minus system. If you get like a pancake block or a knockdown or something like that, you get a double plus. If you give up a sack or a penalty, it's a double minus. But that's generally how I do it. Grades are a tough one because your best guy always gets in the high 90s or mid 90s, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy that's the favorite. And then you picking on a guy for getting a low grade, and there's always arguments. The biggest thing is I said, come in the office and let's watch the film, and you tell me
Yep.
how this isn't what I see. If you think it isn't. But I think grades are useful, especially if there's like a position battle or if it's close right there. It can be used to try to motivate guys. But yeah, that's kind of how I do it.
Okay.
Coach McClanahan.
I've worked for a few OCs that had different mindsets on grades, and head coaches and stuff like that. So my first head coach was big on me giving him all my grades. So I was pretty detailed about it. Honestly, now I'm not that detailed with the way I grade. It's really more of a way to hold me accountable to watching everybody on every play. And I'm kind of the mindset of Coach Hensley is like, the reality is, did you get your job done or not? Because I do preach to my guys, I'm giving you what I think is the best way to do it, but that's just one way to do it. You got to figure out a way to get it done. So I will I kind of take the opposite approach, though, in the way that it looks on their grade sheet. I will minus you for any reason.
Right.
I don't like your hand placement, minus. It's plus or minus. It's no like it's 1 or 0. So like you either get a 0 or you get a 1. And then it's in my mind what I try to keep myself accountable to is did you do the job and did you finish? And then how was your technique? Is there something we can learn from this as a group, essentially? Is this a good technique or is this bad technique? And did it help you get the job? And most of my guys grade out pretty poorly just because I'll minus them for any number of reasons. But you can only get 1 point, but you can be minus for about 100 reasons. So
right.
I really won't show a lot of minuses unless it was like in my meetings, unless it was like a mental reason or just a, hey, this is like something we talked about you not doing and you not taking extra work to get done. And this is you getting beat because you didn't focus on what we asked you to focus on. So this is why if you get moved around in the depth chart, this is the play I got in my mind. And all your grades suck. So it doesn't matter what the other guy's grade was. And then the biggest thing for us was that it quantified how we finish. Like we made a big emphasis on how to finish and just finishing downfield. Like on an incomplete pass, you got to get past the line of scrimmage. I don't care. You got to get past the line of scrimmage. You got to finish towards the football. And I think the first game I probably docked like 80% of the points just because of that. But it was like, okay, this is real. This is the standard. So you can use it kind of however you want to emphasize whatever you think is the most important. And that's why I like having it pretty vague what it is. And I don't give my grades out to my guys. They have to come to me and ask for the grade. So it's not like a public record, oh, well, he graded this or he graded that, because I don't want to fight the battle of, well, I graded out higher than him, so I should play. Well, it's like, yeah, all right, you did. But, because I don't want everybody sitting there comparing scores like it's, middle school. And you got to come and ask for your grade. And most of the guys just don't because they know that it doesn't really matter. They just understand that who's going to play is who's going to play. And it's based on most of the time they all kind of know who it's going to be. And if they want to have an issue with it, they can come in and look at grades, but we'll just put on tape and I'll just start nitpicking. Like, this is why you're not playing. And here's what you could have done to prevent that, but you didn't. Or here's where you'll be in a couple of weeks when you figure it out. Like, it's okay.
Coach Yassin?
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Coach Mo again, the guy I GA'd for having the most complicated grading system in the world. But I've learned to love it. Two things with grading. One, I think we can all speak to – I think O-line coaches are the most honest graders out there. There's nothing like when your O-line doesn't have a great day and you come in and give the grades and your receivers coach or some skill coach comes in with a 96 percentage when you completed maybe 50% of the passes. So I always crack up with grades. So real simple for us. It's a 0, 1, 2, 3 scale. 0 is it's either an MA, you missed the block, you didn't do your assignment. A 1 is you did your assignment, and then a 2 is like what Coach said. I think that's all about finish. And finish for us is, are you engaged with your man at the end of a play or where the ball's past you, or are you down the field when a pass is completed? So like, it might not be a pancake, it might not be a knockdown, but are you engaged with someone when the play's left you in your area? We'll track that and we'll have fun with it. If we get 10 pancakes as a unit in the game, when the schedule allows it, I'll take them to IHOP. Like, we'll do fun little things like that. I do share the grades, and what I've kind of learned with that is, like, with my guys, it becomes – and I agree with what you said, Coach. Like, you have to be careful because sometimes with some kids, like, you'll lose the game. This is where I kind of go both ways with it. And a kid will be like, yeah, we lost the game yesterday, but I graded 95%. So the kid's happy, but that's not the standard you want. Like, we lost the damn game. Like, I like to do it because I use it a little bit to kind of call guys out, like, hey, you did your job. Congrats. You had all ones. But did you ever finish yesterday to a winning standard? So, like, I like to do it that way. And I think it's really good for film tagging. When you go back and look at it, you can kind of just pick up the plays that you really need to pick on to show the guys on Sunday. And let the kids have some ownership with it, So
You tag it in Exos that you use. You grade it in Exos so you can just basically filter it from there. I should do that.
Coach Schiffman?
Yeah, we're similar to that. We do 2, 1, 0, or a minus, and it's kind of along the same lines that everyone else has been talking about. And so, a couple things that they've done at Lake Forest College before I got here that they kind of kept alive was if you grade 90% or better, you get a flatback Warrior T-shirt. So guys kind of, they try to fight for those. And then one of the things I did when I got in was I started giving out it's kind of high schoolish, I guess, but I gave out little stickers for pancakes that guys could put, and it was just a picture of Dave Chappelle dressed as Prince holding a plate of pancakes. I just made like little 1x1 stickers, so they'd get those, and I share them with them after the game, but I usually don't tell them which plays were bad. I made the mistake of having the grades up one time when we watched film, and then then that brings up why'd I get a 1? How come I got this and that? And so I kind of do what Coach Ciosi does, where we'll pick out a few plays on Monday and watch kind of like, hey, here's why you got a minus on this, or here's why you didn't get a 2 on this. But I'm kind of like these guys. I'm a hard grader. I think we gave out 2 shirts this year. That was it. And one was in a game where a guy only played a half, but he played enough plays. And then the other one I can't remember. But so it's not like we're giving out 90% every game or anything like that. So I'm a pretty hard grader. But I tried to, the sticker thing, I tried to make it fun. And then as an offense, our offensive coordinator has us do production points as well. So, like if you are on the field for a touchdown run, you get 5 points or something like that. So we do that's for everybody that's on the field. We do production points, and then I'd give out bonus points for a pancake or a knockdown block as well. So it can be kind of a good competition type thing. Guys always would come in Mondays and ask how many pancakes they had, and then if you tell them none, they're arguing. They're like, oh, look at play 42, I pancake that guy. And so it's kind of a fun thing for our guys to do.
There's one thing. Sorry to jump in.
No, go ahead.
But the one thing that I took away from when I was playing was guys' grades seemed to matter to them whenever we reviewed the film, and then it kind of like got forgotten. And like I go back to so I started out teaching middle school. Was the point of a grade is to change behavior, and so if I'm not changing behavior with my grade or whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If it doesn't emphasize or detract from what I really want to do, then it doesn't matter. If it's not building on what I wanted, it doesn't have a point. So that's kind of why I stopped emphasizing grades. It's just really not that important to me how I grade or what my guys think of the grades. It's again, it's just to make me watch every position for everything and really kind of digest that. But it's really about what that the first cut up you watch after the game, I think is the thing that's going to impact behavior the most. Like what you tell your guys that you can back up then on film is going to impact their attitude going into that next week, I think, more than any other meeting you'll have. There's certainly other factors that impact that grader, but you think like a kid graded out well and kid graded out poorly and he's a starter and that kid needs to get his attitude fixed, then he's going to have to get called out in film. And you got to back it up on film and you got to put 4 or 5 plays in a row. If that kid can handle it, kind of like, hey, you're not doing your job here. You're not who you think you are right now. You need to be better in these ways, and always give them the tools to do that, obviously. But I'm looking to move the needle behavior-wise. If we couldn't finish 2 weeks ago down the field and all these standards that we have, and we did it that week, then I'm going to show a highlight tape of finishes. And that might be the only thing we look at least that day. And we'll go back and watch some other correction stuff. But, it's got to be focused on purpose rather than just the grades for the grades. And I think most of you guys are doing that. Not to say you're not, but just in general, I think it's easy to get lost in the nitpicky moment stuff of – especially the kids see that kind of that microcosm of that in the games.
Coach Shipman, there's no way your group shouldn't lead the nation in pancakes if you're offering up those stickers. I mean, there's just no way.
You got to give me some of those.
I tell you what, I ordered them. That was one of the first things I did, and I got 2,000 of them for $15. So there's websites out there, fellas. If you want that stuff, they're out there.
Yes.
Those are amazing. Those are amazing. No, that's all the questions. Did any of you guys have any questions that came to mind that you want to just hit the panel with? And if not, I can open it up first. We can grab 1 or 2 questions and then we'll kind of wrap it up. But if you guys have any questions first, anything that came to mind? Okay. I just opened it up, guys. If anybody has a question, we'll just get to 1 or 2. I'll just kind of open the floor if any of you coaches were curious on in regards to anything that these guys are doing, or maybe that they touched on already, or if there's something else that you are curious about, we'll take one or two, and then we'll just kind of wrap it up there. But until they do that, guys, I definitely appreciate you guys jumping on, man. Like I said, these roundtables are always fun. I think it's awesome to see just the different perspectives and how guys are doing it. And obviously as coaches, right, we're just learning from each other, from not only asking the questions, but the answers that we get back. And you guys are obviously doing a ton of really good stuff. I was just jotting down a bunch of notes as all you guys were talking. So I definitely appreciate you guys for jumping on and doing so, man. It was awesome.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks. This was awesome, man.
No, I appreciate it, guys. I mean, we've been rocking and rolling, man. You guys are just adding to it. And, at the end of the day, I mean, as a coach community, man, we're pushing this thing forward, and it's awesome. So now what we'll do is so here's one question that came in, guys. How many, and feel free to chime in, but how many screens do you have for each game plan?
Oof. We're 1 to 2. We were not great at screens. It's one of the big things we got fixed. We carried 1 to 2.
Yeah, we're the same way. We that was one of the things actually we went into the off season specifically saying we need to get better at screens. So we're probably 1 to 2 as well.
Yeah, we had 2 in, not counting like a simple like swing or anything like that. We had 2 real screens where the line got out.
We sit around 2 or 3. I've been at 0 in the past because we were so bad at them. My advice, if you're looking to build on screens, you got to do it live. Drilling it on air ain't gonna do a damn thing. And I learned that the hard way by getting drilled in the mouth on every screen we ran my first 2 years. So it's about timing and concise rules.
Screens are pretty heavy as far as just what they take to be successful. I think you got to really limit that.
Yeah.
Especially how you can't cut down anymore either.
Yes.
I think it makes it so much harder.
Tough.
Piece of advice to building O-line culture at a first-year JUCO program.
Show the kids that you love them. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Your guys have to know you have their back, that you really care about them, and it's not some BS, that you actually really do care about them. And that's the first thing to get that culture, that buy-in. Because if you can't get the buy-in from each kid as they come through, especially at a JUCO program, I mean, you're going to be getting kids rotating every year, like a brand new room. You're going to have to find ways to show them that you care about them and get them on your side. And then you can start developing all the physicality, all the aggression, all that kind of familyhood, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, make them have it so they love coming to practice, man. Like our kids, they have fun. And I know we as O-line coaches, we all bust their chops, but like you look at any good O-line, those guys, whether it's pro, high school, youth, those kids, they love showing up. Like they love just grinding with each other. So that's a big thing. Make them care about each other.
Yeah, I agree with those guys. But make it fun and make it that, let them have that bond and that group atmosphere and that family atmosphere, and you'll be well on your way.
I mean, the first one Coach Enza said, I think is there's nothing more important than that. Like if they don't know that you have their back all the time, they won't move an inch for you. But if they do know that, they'll move mountains. And then you have to have consistent messaging and consistent procedures on how you handle players. If you lack consistency, then it's going to be really hard for guys to buy in because they're not going to trust you. They might know you love them, but they're not going to trust you because they see guys being treated differently for different things. So that was a hard lesson I learned teaching middle school kids. And so 120 middle school kids can buy in, then I think that'll help with some JUCO kids in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
If you could have only one piece of training or practice equipment for your O-line, what would it be?
Crowler for me.
Full pads. I mean, yeah. I mean, probably, yeah, full pads. I mean, I like the Crowther sleds are awesome, but I want to be body on body as often.
I
as
agree. That for us at Division III, we've got, with our spring ball, we can't use pads. They can't be padded or anything. So it was such a frustrating spring last year. So yeah, definitely having pads, even if you just shells, that where the offensive line has something they can grab onto. That definitely is beneficial.
How often do you guys use boards?
For what we do, I don't, but I used to a lot.
I used to do it a ton when we were just tracks.
Yeah.
I've gotten away from it. I'm really a lot more like I don't do anything that isn't with somebody in front of me, a D lineman, because everything is landmarked according to a D lineman. So the boards, we don't have a lot of them. So it's almost been more of like a burden to try to get them set up from a time perspective. I think in hindsight, saying that out loud, it's more something I should probably do in the off season than it is in season. But I do like to use them early in camp to kind of hammer home some like key fundamentals, I guess.
One of the things we did that we actually got from the Green Bay Packers was they don't use boards or anything. They just use a couple towels taped together. And so we do that, but it's not as much. It's more early on in the fall, just for kind of pads. But once I get rid of them pretty quickly. So that's kind of what we do.
When you're talking about the towels, Coach, how do you set that up? You just create like a long strip of towels to keep your feet apart, same as a board? Okay.
And then just tape them together, and then it kind of that way if a guy steps on it or something, he's not turning an ankle. He's not, if he rips it up, it's a 99-cent towel. You can just chuck it out or buy some new ones, and you can use them for anything. You lay them down. You can do whatever you need to do for like a board, and they don't weigh a ton. We threw them in we kind of had our own equipment bags for every section. So we had 5 or 6 towels in there and a couple like little mini med balls, and that was our O-line bag.
One of the things that I really like using is those tackle rings, especially for screen timing and working on placements of that, and then stretch combos, different things like that.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
Obviously, it's not as good as like a full person, but those things can get rolling pretty fast. You can have coaches out there now, especially for the screen drill. I think it's really beneficial. And
we're going to use those for cutting, actually.
They're awesome for cut blocking. We use them for cut blocking.
The boards, the best thing I did with boards was when we started doing combos, and anytime you have for the uncovered guy, I mean, keeping that base. I mean, the number one thing we fought probably with our uncovered player was a long, skinny second step. You know what I mean? And trying to like just lean in rather than just working vertical to set that track. But that was when it came down to last year, I think that was probably the only thing I used the board for all year for the second half of the year. Not that there isn't good things for it, but yeah. And then the other piece of equipment I would use a lot is med balls. If you can't afford an X bag, which is an awesome piece of equipment, but a med ball is about just as good. And you can get, you find them all over the place for next to them. They don't need to be heavy. You can do a lot of different creative things with them, from strike training to, holding them, especially if you're a D3 guy or high school guy and you're limited on pads, you can still unload. Guys will not hit their friends unpadded.
It's such a realistic surface.
Hit a med ball.
Yeah, it's round.
And you can strike straight from the shoulder, and it's not like you're striking and running your hands all over the place.
We used old volleyballs.
Yeah, that's a great.
That was all we had, and it gave such a small surface for having those guys keep their hands and elbows inside tight. So we use those when we could. We're hopefully gonna get a couple med balls though, because there's so much stuff you can do with those obviously now. But yeah, we kind of just made the best of what we had.
Absolutely. We'll get this one more here that just came in last. How are you guys making in-game adjustments? Like what questions are you asking your guys? Are you going in order of plays? Are you focusing on bad plays? So how are you guys making in-game adjustments with your group?
It's a kind of a cool little creative thing I do. So I play 7 to 9 linemen a game. I rotate throughout the game. And one of the things I do is one of the older guys, when they're not in, I have them stand and they take in their viewpoint of what they see. And they give me feedback on what they're seeing. So I just kind of compare it to what I do. And so it kind of gives me an extra set of eyes on the field. So when the guys get off to the sideline, I can kind of confirm if I'm crazy or not, or if he's way off than what I'm seeing. So that's something I've done. I like, empower your guys to feel confident in what they're seeing. You gotta set them up throughout the week so you trust them enough that what they're telling you on game day is trustworthy. I trust my guys a lot with what they see, as long as it's not something completely different than what I think I'm seeing out there.
Yeah, those
And one of the things that I do that's helped a lot is we make a look book, and it's basically all the different looks, and it's we have them as a diagram, but we also have just a screenshot on Huddle, and we've put it in there and this is a pretty big book, but I can flip through that and talk about it and see because sometimes those guys aren't sure what they're seeing, and I can ask and kind of refresh. And it kind of helps me too. If I'm on the sideline and I'm seeing a certain pressure that's hurting our pass pro, I can go there and just flip right there and kind of show them what it looks like exactly. That's been good too, because especially on away games, I pass it around the bus and they're looking through it. And again, not trying to overload them, but giving them that quick refresher right there so that they can communicate with me easier.
Absolutely. Any other guys?
Yeah, I know. For me, I guess kind of more something that I don't know if it's unique or not, but I want to know who's making the tackle on every play. So I have somebody in the box spot that for me, and whether that's, I want to know usually their number, but that means that I've got to be really, really, really familiar with the personnel of the other team. If I know 55 is the Mike, I got to know where he's going to line up. So usually I just want to know if an inside linebacker is making the play, or a safety or D lineman making a play, whoever that is, front side, back side, usually how I want to look at it. That way I know on every play, if I really know my system in and out, I know who got beat or missed the block. Or if we don't have a hat for him, and then it's time to throw play action or whatever it is. So I try to, if I know who's making plays, I don't chart it myself, but I want to hear it, and then I'll write it down by drive basically, and I forget about it by that drive most of the time, depending on who it is. And then, we spend a lot of time. I guess how much I trust my guys is just how much who's telling me what on the sideline. I mean, we all got guys that, coach, that guy, everybody blitzed. It's like, no, they didn't. Yeah, it's, I want to talk to my centers more than anybody, because they're setting points. Are we having an ID issue? Are we having a mental breakdown, or are we getting beat? Is really the first thing I need to know. Because, man, I can't tell you how many games I've been in as a player, as a coach, where if we had just ID'd this as a 4-2 instead of a 4-3, or if we hadn't pushed the zone out one with the tight end, we would have been in much better shape. And it's like, yeah, I got to know that type of thing. What are you calling the fronts? I usually have the centers kind of track back. What fronts are you getting? And then are they matching what I'm hearing in the box?
Coach Schiffman, you want to add to that one? The in-game adjustments?
No, I mean, it's just mostly communication with the guys. I try to keep a little notebook in my pocket that I can kind of, because I don't call the plays. I'm not doing anything like that, but I'm just trying to watch everything I can. And I keep a little notebook in my pocket that I can kind of jot my own notes down and then ask them questions when they come off the field. So mostly, it's a lot of it is trust what they're seeing. Sometimes, while they might not know everything, while they might think some things are wrong, they're the ones that are out there, and they might pick up some little tiny things that you can fix in game. So, I think their opinion matters, especially, the big thing for me is if they see something that might work. A lot of times they'll come to the sideline and say, hey, coach, inside zone is there, run it weak, and so, that's kind of important. But just for my own benefit, I like I said, I like to take a little note and jot things down when I see them.
Absolutely. Well, I think it would be wrong not to ask, and we'll end on this one, but your guys' favorite run play and why? We'll kind of end on that one.
We like outside zone pimple. We like to get out there and get in front and our center is a little fella. He likes to cut when he can. So that's kind of our big one.
There you go. What about you other guys?
Inside zone for us. I want to get double teams and I want to move people and I want to beat some heads in. That or personally, that we don't really run it much at Drake, but A-gap power. I mean, that's like if I want to get to a place where OC will let me run that.
Inside zone, yeah.
Yeah.
Inside zone and pin and pull are my two.
There you go.
Inside zone, big time. Love inside zone. Just a lot of different things you can do off of it. I think a lot of just different variations you could do. And I think it's aggressive downhill, you know, especially with just how we ran it, how I've ran it in the past. It's not so much trying to get that flow all the way over. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be downhill with it, and we're going to go attack guys. And I love inside zone.
For sure. Well, fellas, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you guys spending the time with us, man. A good hour and a half flies by. But once again, you guys, ton of great questions, ton of great answers, a lot of insight offered up. Obviously, the coaches in here benefited tremendously from it. Thanks to all the coaches who tuned in. It was awesome that you guys were in here learning and getting better. And, you know, for you guys to be willing to spend the time with us today and come up with some awesome questions and just, you know, that feedback that you know, just talking ball, man, is always great. So I just want to thank you guys for that and appreciate all you guys do.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes.